Hello and welcome to Jesus for Asia Now. I'm Natalie Wood and I have John Wood here with me on the show.
Hi, darling.
And today
Yes.
we get to talk about our orphanage in India.
Yes. Well, we started out in 2007. We'd gone over with a team, 6 teams to do evangelism in 6 different places all at once. And as we were wrapping up that evangelism, we got a call from somebody that was running an orphanage, but they were getting old and they were losing their support. They were looking for somebody to take over the orphanage so they didn't have to put the kids back out on the street. And when you get a request like that, what do you say? No, just put them out on the street. It's okay. It's like,
No,
not.
you don't say that.
So we said, yeah, we'll assume the leadership of this orphanage. And it was a very small orphanage, and it was a rented building. And very quickly, the owners decided to sell the rented building. And so we started looking for another building that we could house the kids in. And it was really hard to find a place because people didn't want, number one, a bunch of kids in their home, and number two, a bunch of Christian kids in their home.
We actually rented another place, and then the Hindu neighbors complained so much about the children singing.
Yes.
And they sing at the top of their lungs, so it is not quiet.
But I think it also disturbs the gods that are in the
evil
area.
spirits.
Yeah, so anyway, so we looked around, and our wonderful donors came to our aid and helped us buy a cute little home. But as you can see, look at those kids and look at the size of that house. The house is very small and the backyard is very small. When we purchased it, it didn't even have an operating toilet. So we had to put in a well so they could have water. We had to put in two toilets, and we had to build another room on top of the house. But even still, when you go in that house, it's very small. And the kitchen, there's no proper kitchen facility. So you see that little hallway on the other side of that wall. That's where they used to do their cooking. And it was very improper.
Dark. And
so we started looking really hard for a place out in the country. And it's amazing because in India, even though it's a country with a lot of poverty, the land is very expensive. If you can imagine, the United States has just over 300 million people, whereas India has 1.2 billion. So we got 4 times the population, but only 1/3 the land mass. And so it's very difficult to find
land
property.
is a premium.
Yes, very expensive. But the Lord led us to a place that was being sold by a man who had been a successful businessman and was retiring, and his wife had passed away, and he wanted to spend his final days around a bunch of kids. And so he says, I'll sell it to you at this price. And he was very patient with us paying for it, because he originally said, you know, the total funds are due in 3 months, and it took us 2 years.
Yeah, he was very patient.
Very patient. So would you like to meet the kids?
Yes.
Awesome.
Let's do that.
Awesome.
There are millions of orphans here in India, but a few of them have found peace and safety here at Bethel Children's Home. Despite their traumatic and painful past, these precious children are learning that through Jesus, they can find healing, peace, and joy. I know you're going to love them just like I do.
Aren't they precious?
Yeah, totally precious.
Yeah. So when we got to the new orphanage, we found that there were some challenges still. There were some repairs that needed to be made, and there had been a drought, ongoing drought for several years. And so there were challenges with water, having water there. In fact, there was a 35-foot open well that was there when we first purchased the property, and it started to go dry. So then our donors gave, and we were able to dig a well.
Yeah, it's very deep.
They call it a
well.
bore well there, and it was 925 feet down they went before they got water.
Yep. Well,
And
it's actually just such a little bit of water that it was basically dry. It wasn't enough water to put a pump down and really pump it. And so we were like, well, maybe we should dig in a different location.
But we decided to pray.
Yeah.
And so
the
we prayed
kids-
here, and the children there prayed, and What happened, honey?
They tried again, they tested again, and there was water.
There was water in the well.
But in that area...
It wasn't sweet water, though.
Right.
It was salty water.
In that whole area, they hardly ever get sweet water. It's known for being very salty. And they got salty water, but they kept praying, and they kept praying, and the water got better and better. Until now, the people in the area are amazed at how clean and beautiful and tasty that water really is.
Yeah, we have another testimony about that. We want to share the rest of it in a minute. But the children also, because of the drought, nothing was able to grow. And there's a large area in the orphanage, in some of the pictures you can see that, where we can grow things. You know, we can do agriculture and supply food for the children there.
Right.
And so we were trying to grow, but there was no water, so we couldn't plant.
Right.
Because there's no point in planting if you don't have water. And so the children went up on the roof one evening and they were praying together, asking God for rain. And before they could finish praying, it started a total downpour, and they had to run downstairs, and they were all soaking wet.
Yes.
Because the Lord had poured the windows of heaven.
And the people from the local village, their testimony about the kids and about the orphanage was
that they knew that God was there.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, one of the local leaders in the area, he's part of the government or something, local government. He's lived there his whole life. And he came one day to the orphanage to meet with our director, and someone brought him a glass of this water.
From the well.
From the well. And he drank it and, you know, kept on with his conversation and didn't say anything. And the gentleman that brought the water was still standing there, and he said, "Would you like more water?" And he said, "Well, yes, sure." And so he goes and gets him another glass, and he comments then on how good the water is. And they said, "Where do you think this water came from?" He says, "Well, maybe you got it from the government, because they get water from the government." And no, maybe you bought the water, because you can buy water.
Bottled water.
Yeah, or they'll bring it to you by truck or whatever. And they said, no, where did it come from? It came from our well out there. And they said, "It has to be your God."
Wow.
Because the presence of the God is here, because the children pray and the rain comes, and this water has turned good.
Yeah.
So it's a real testimony to God's provision.
Yeah. So here's a picture of the well. Goes down 925 feet, and it works.
Yeah.
It's about 500 gallons per day, from what I understand, you can get out of that well.
Yeah.
It's very cool.